It was past midnight. The city was completely quiet. Every restaurant was closed. Every street was empty. The rain had been coming down for hours, cold, steady, and heavy, the kind that gets into everything, that soaks through your jacket and your shirt and your skin and just keeps going. And somewhere in that darkness, a dog was searching. He pushed through garbage bags behind a closed restaurant, his nose low to the ground, pulling things out, sniffing, setting some aside. His coat was soaked flat. Rain dripped off his ears. His paws were black with mud. He looked exhausted. He looked desperate. But he was not out there for himself. He had already eaten, hours ago, whatever little he could find. Every single night, once his own hunger was handled, he went back out, back into the rain, back into the dark, back through every alley and side street he knew, digging through whatever the city had thrown away, looking for something worth carrying. Because 6 blocks away, sitting against a cold stone wall with nothing in his stomach and no one in the world looking for him, a little boy was waiting. His name was Noah, 11 years old, homeless, sleeping outside for weeks. And in that entire city full of people, the only living thing that came to him every single night, that made sure he did not fall asleep hungry, that pressed against his side through the cold, dark hours until morning came, was this dog. A dog with no owner, no collar, no one giving him any instructions at all. He had just decided, all on his own, that this boy was worth taking care of. Every night. For months. Without fail. Without a single person knowing. Until the night he went out and never came back. And Noah walked every street in that city calling his name. He made signs with no phone number because he had no phone. He walked until his legs gave out and his voice was gone. He came back to that cold wall and waited for footsteps that never came. And on the 10th night, with the rain falling and the space beside him empty, he pressed his face into his knees and cried himself to sleep. This is their story. Stay with me. If you are new here, hit subscribe right now so you never miss a story like this one. Now let us go back to where it all began. Noah had been on the street for 3 weeks when Buddy found him. 3 weeks sounds short, but 3 weeks on the street when you are 11 years old and completely alone is long enough to change a person. Long enough to learn which dumpsters have food and which ones are empty, which streets are safe at night and which ones are not, how to make yourself invisible, how to sit so still and take up so little space that people walk right past you without their eyes ever really landing on you. Noah had learned all of that very fast. He kept his face still. He kept his feelings packed down somewhere deep where they could not slow him down. He was not broken. He was too stubborn for that. But he had changed. His mother's name was Grace. 2 jobs. A diner in the morning and office cleaning at night. Tired in the permanent way that comes from running that hard for that long. But she always came home. She always asked about his day. And she always actually listened to the answer. Then the rent went up. The hours at the diner got cut. The savings ran out. Everything fell at once. She sent him to stay with a family she trusted while she got back on her feet. When she said goodbye, she held his face in both hands and told him it was temporary. He believed her. He was still believing her 3 weeks later, standing at a payphone in the rain, pressing her number and listening to it ring and go to voicemail. She meant every word. He knew that. He just did not know if she was okay. That was the thing that never left him. Not the hunger or the cold or the fear of the streets. The not knowing about his mother sat in his chest like a stone and never moved. The family she had left him with were good people. But good people have limits. After a few weeks, Noah could feel it. The silences when he walked into rooms, the slightly smaller portions at meals. He understood. He always understood things before they were spoken. So one morning before anyone woke up, he packed his backpack, the old one with the broken zipper he had fixed with a paper clip, and walked out. He pulled the door closed behind him without a sound. $43. A change of clothes. His mother's number written in marker on the inside of his wrist. He moved around the city for 2 days before he found the spot on Westover Road. A long stone wall along the edge of a big property. Behind an iron gate sat a mansion, wide and tall, every window glowing warm and gold every evening like something from a different world entirely. Flowers in the garden. A car in the driveway worth more than his mother had made in 3 years. The stone held heat from the day long after the sun went down. The overhang above the gate blocked the rain. The neighborhood was quiet. The kind of people who lived behind gates like that did not come outside to handle things personally. He was invisible there. And invisible was safe. He found a piece of cardboard and wrote, "Hungry and cold." He sat down against the wall, pulled his knees to his chest, and waited. 3 weeks passed. The mansion glowed every evening like nothing outside existed. Cars moved through the gate without slowing. People walked past without turning their heads. The rain came and went and came again. Noah sat in the gap between that warm golden light and the dark wet street. Cold, hungry, invisible to every single person who passed within a few feet of him. Until the evening, a dog walked out of the shadows and sat down beside him. It was a Wednesday, rain all afternoon. Noah sat against the wall with his knees pulled up, staring at the wet pavement, keeping his mind soft and loose the way he had learned to do when thinking too clearly about his life made the cold feel colder. Then he heard paws on wet stone. Slow, unhurried, not the quick nervous click of a dog on a leash being pulled somewhere. The sound of something moving at its own pace, with nothing to be afraid of. The steps stopped. Noah looked up. A dog stood about 6 feet away, watching him. Medium build, coat soaked dark from the rain, ears moving slowly, reading every sound around them. Not growling, not nervous, just standing there, completely still, looking at Noah with the kind of calm, steady attention you only see in a creature that has been through enough to stop being surprised by anything. Noah stayed still and looked back. The dog walked forward. 1 step, then stopped. Another step, then stopped. Not rushing, asking. Moving into the space between them one careful step at a time, checking at each one whether it was okay to keep coming. He came all the way to Noah. He dropped his nose to the boy's shoe and sniffed slowly, up along the leg, the knee, the hand. Then he raised his head and looked at Noah's face from close up. His eyes were dark and warm and completely calm. And then he sat down, right there against Noah's side, so close that Noah felt the warmth coming off his wet coat immediately. Noah did not move. He was afraid if he moved the dog would leave. So he sat there barely breathing, feeling that warmth press into him, feeling the slow rise and fall of the dog's breathing right beside him. He could not remember the last time something had chosen to be beside him. After a few minutes, he slowly lowered his hand onto the dog's back. The dog leaned into it, just slightly, the small certain lean that says, yes. Stay? They sat together in the rain for nearly an hour. The mansion glowed. The street was empty and dark, and a boy who had not felt truly seen in months sat against a cold stone wall with a warm body pressed to his side, and something inside him that had been wound very tight for weeks began, without permission, to loosen. When the dog finally stood and walked back into the dark, the cold rushed in immediately. Noah told himself not to expect the dog to come back. He had learned that lesson. Things left. Expecting them to return was how you got hurt. He told himself that firmly. And then the very next evening, as the lights came on and the rain returned, he heard those same slow steps on the wet stone. The dog came back and sat down like he had never left. The third evening, something was different. Same slow footsteps, but underneath them, a soft, careful rustling. The sound of something being carried by a mouth being very gentle with what it was holding. The dog came around the corner and walked directly to Noah and set something down on the dry patch of pavement between them. A sandwich, still wrapped, clean and whole. He stepped back 1 pace, sat down, and looked at Noah. His tail moved in a slow, steady sweep. Noah looked at the sandwich. He looked at the dog. He picked it up. He ate slowly, every bite careful, every bite real. More than he had eaten in one sitting for days. When he finished, he looked at the dog for a long moment. "Thank you," he said. 2 words on a wet, dark street. The next night the dog brought half a bread roll. The night after, a piece of wrapped chicken. Night after night, arriving as the dark settled over Westover Road, always carrying something, always setting it down in front of Noah first, never keeping anything for himself. And after Noah ate, the dog stayed. Every night, through all the cold, dark hours, he pressed against Noah's side and did not move until morning. His warmth was the only warmth Noah had. His breathing was the only steady sound in all that silence. The weight of him against Noah's side was the thing that made sleeping through the night feel possible at all. On the 4th night, Noah put his hand on the dog's back in the dark and said quietly, "Hey, buddy." The ears came forward. The tail swept the ground. That was enough. The name stuck. He checked for a collar every time Buddy came close, running his fingers along the dog's neck in the dark. No collar, no tag, no name, no number, nothing pointing to anyone. As far as Noah could tell, Buddy belonged to nobody. Or, and this was the thought that sat quietly in the back of his mind on the hardest nights, Buddy belonged to him. Maybe that was simply what had happened. Maybe the dog had walked up to that wall one Wednesday evening, looked at that boy, and made a decision that was not going back. Every night, Buddy proved that right. January hit, and the temperature dropped to freezing. There is a cold that only finds you when you are sleeping outside. It does not come all at once. It moves in slow, through the jacket, then the shirt, then the skin, then deeper. By the time you feel it fully, it has been inside you for hours. By morning, you are not just cold. You are cold in a way the sun does not fix. On the worst nights, when the rain came sideways and soaked his cardboard flat, and the shaking started deep in his chest, Noah pressed his face into the fur behind Buddy's ear and went still. That spot held more heat than anywhere else. He would breathe in and count. 1 breath, 2, 3, getting through the hour, then the next, then the one after that. He talked to Buddy through those long, cold hours. He talked about his mother's kitchen, the way she hummed while she cooked, low and soft, without thinking about it. A sound that meant she was there and everything was still okay. He talked about the oak tree outside his old bedroom window, the one whose branches tapped against the glass on windy nights. He talked about the chocolate chip granola bars she always called too sweet and always packed in his lunch anyway, because they were his favorite, and that was simply that. He talked about the payphones, standing in the rain and pressing her number and hearing it ring, and then her voice on the voicemail, calm, a little tired. He had called so many times he could hear every note of it in his sleep. He stopped calling eventually, not because he stopped needing her, because the hope that jumped in his chest every time the phone started ringing, and the drop when it hit voicemail, had become more painful than not trying. Buddy's chin rested heavy and warm on his knee through all of it. Breathing slow, eyes half closed but never all the way, always a little bit there, receiving every word without moving, without pulling away, like nothing Noah was carrying was too heavy to sit with. Behind the gate the mansion glowed on, people inside living their warm evenings, not knowing that 12 feet away on the other side of a stone wall, a boy and a dog were getting each other through the winter one breath at a time. There was one night in January that Noah would never forget. The temperature had dropped below freezing by midnight. The rain had turned to something between rain and ice, small sharp drops that hit his face like tiny needles. His cardboard was gone, soaked to nothing hours ago. There was nothing between him and the stone but his jacket, and the jacket had stopped working long before. He could not stop shaking. He pressed himself as close to Buddy as he could get, arms around the dog's middle, face buried deep in the fur at his neck. And Buddy did something he had never done before. He shifted, turned his whole body around slowly, and pressed himself against Noah's chest instead, so that Noah's arms wrapped fully around him, and the dog's entire body became a kind of shield between the boy and the cold. They stayed like that for hours. Noah's arms around Buddy, Buddy's warmth pouring into him steadily, patiently, endlessly. Noah did not sleep that night, but he made it through. In the morning when the sky finally went gray, he looked at the dog and the dog looked back at him. No words. There were no words for what that night had been. There never would be. He just put his forehead against Buddy's and stayed there for a while. February came in hard, and Buddy started going further. The nearby spots were picked over. He needed more distance to find something worth carrying back. Noah watched him leave each afternoon and told himself it was fine. Buddy knew these streets. He always came back. Then one Tuesday in the middle of the month, Buddy left in the afternoon and did not come back by dark. 6 o'clock. 7. The mansion lit up. The rain started. No Buddy. Noah pressed his back into the stone and kept his eyes on the corner at the end of the wall. He told himself, there is a reason. A good one. He will come. 8 o'clock. Then he heard something. A sound from the far end of the wall that was wrong. Not the footsteps he was waiting for. Something slow and dragging and uneven. The sound of something hurting with every step and taking the steps anyway. Noah was moving before the thought finished. Buddy came around the corner on 3 legs. His right front leg was pulled tight against his chest. The fur along his side was matted dark. His head hung low. His breathing came in short, careful pulls, each one working against pain that showed in every part of him. But when he saw Noah, his tail moved. Slow, barely off the ground. But it moved. Noah dropped to his knees on the wet pavement. He put both hands on either side of Buddy's face, gently, He looked into those dark, warm eyes. Buddy looked straight back, calm, still himself, even through whatever had happened to him out there. And then Noah saw what was still in Buddy's mouth. A burger, wrapped in paper, damp and slightly crushed, but still held carefully between his teeth, the same gentle grip he always used. The grip that said, "This is not mine. I have to get it there." He had been hit by something. Every step had cost him. He could barely walk. And he had still come back. Still carried the food. Still made it all the way here. Because there was a boy at that wall who needed to eat. That was the only thought that mattered. Not the pain. Not the leg dragging behind him through the dark and the rain. The boy needed to eat. So here he was. Buddy walked the last few steps and set the burger down in front of Noah with that same gentle care. Then he lowered himself slowly onto his good side, rested his head on Noah's knee, and closed his eyes. Noah's throat shut completely. The tears came before he could do anything about them. He pressed his hand against Buddy's side and felt every breath, shallow and careful, each one pushing through pain. "You didn't have to," he whispered. His voice broke in the middle of it. "You hear me? You didn't have to do that. I don't care about the food. I care about you." Buddy's tail moved twice against the wet ground. Noah stayed awake all night, his hand on the dog's side, counting every breath, talking to him in the lowest voice he had, just for the two of them, telling him he was right there, that nothing was going to happen, that all he had to do was breathe, just breathe. By morning, Buddy was still there, still pressing gently into Noah's hand. Noah tried twice to get help, walked into a vet clinic, walked into a shelter. Both times the first question was about his parents. Both times he turned and walked back out before it got to the part he could not answer. So they kept going together the only way they knew. Day by day, Buddy still came every night, still searched, still brought whatever he could find. The legs slowed him and the routes shortened. But he never stopped. Not once. It was a Thursday in early March. Spring was just beginning to show, the light a little softer, the rain feeling slightly less like a punishment. Buddy left that morning the way he always left. Steady, focused, moving with that quiet purpose Noah knew better than almost anything. At the corner of the wall, he stopped. He turned and looked back at Noah. A long still look. Not urgent. Not a goodbye. The look he gave sometimes before he disappeared. The one that said, "I see you. I know you're there. I'll be back." Noah raised his hand slightly. Buddy held the look for one more moment. Then he turned and walked around the corner and was gone. Noah did not know he was watching Buddy for the last time. Nobody ever knows that. Loss does not warn you. It does not slow down and give you one last chance to hold on longer, or say the right thing, or look carefully one more time. It just takes, quietly, without a word, and leaves you going back through your memory, trying to find the final moment, only to realize it looked exactly like every other moment. Ordinary. Quiet. No sign at all. By evening, Buddy had not come back. Noah sat at the corner and watched the spot where Buddy always appeared. The sky went dark. The mansion lit up. The gate opened and closed for a car that did not slow. The rain got heavier. Buddy did not come. He told himself, "There is a reason. He is fine. He always comes." He waited until midnight. Until 2 in the morning. Until the sky started going gray at the edges. The space beside him stayed cold all night. That Thursday morning, Buddy had gone further than ever before. The routes he knew were emptied out. He needed to go further, down through the neighborhood, across the hill, toward the commercial strip on the other side of the district. He moved carefully the way he always did. Patient, methodical, but the leg that had never properly healed had been getting worse beneath the surface for weeks. Every mile out, every mile back, every night, the bone was not holding. He was crossing a wet parking lot near a shopping mall when it gave out. He stumbled. He tried to catch himself. The leg buckled, and he hit the wet ground, and he could not get back up. He lay there behind the row of dumpsters, and he tried. Several times. He could not. So he lay still, breathing, eyes open, rain falling on him in the empty lot. And his mind was pointed, the way it was always pointed at that hour, toward Westover Road. Toward the corner he still needed to turn. Toward the boy sitting against the wall in the dark, waiting for him. He could not get there. For the first time in all those months, he could not get there. A man named Thomas found him, a worker at the mall doing his afternoon rounds. He came around the side of the dumpsters, stopped, and looked at the dog lying in the rain. He crouched down slowly, made himself small and quiet, and held out one open hand. Buddy looked at him for a long moment. Then he placed his chin in Thomas's palm. Thomas carried him to his truck and drove him to an animal rescue center across the city. The vet confirmed what the leg already showed. The fracture had never healed and months of walking had made it much worse. Surgery, weeks of recovery. But with proper care, she said, Buddy would be completely fine. No microchip, no collar, nothing pointing to anyone. Thomas assumed Buddy was a stray. He assumed no one was waiting. He had no way of knowing about a boy on Westover Road sitting against a stone wall at that exact moment, eyes fixed on an empty corner, listening for footsteps that were not coming. Noah gave it 2 days. He spent both nights alone against the wall. No warmth, no breathing to count, no weight pressing into his side. Just the cold and the dark and the empty corner. He told himself, 2 days. Buddy knows these streets. 2 days is not forever. On the morning of the 3rd day, he got up before the street was awake and started walking. Every alley he had ever seen Buddy move through. The back of the restaurant strip. The routes toward the commercial district. The loading docks. He walked with his head constantly turning, eyes scanning every shadow, every doorway, every sheltered corner. He called Buddy's name as he walked, quietly at first, then louder. By evening, when the streets emptied, he was calling it into the dark without caring who heard. Buddy, Buddy, Buddy. He stopped everyone who would slow down. A vendor on Morrison Street. A woman who walked the same block every morning with her small dog. A man who sat outside a hardware store smoking every afternoon. Had anyone seen a dog alone? Medium size. Bad limp on the right front leg. Most people kept moving. One man stopped. Said he thought he had seen a dog like that a few days back near the mall parking lot on the east side. Said the dog looked like he was struggling badly. Said a man from the mall picked him up and put him in a truck. Noah went completely still. Picked him up. He asked, which direction? Which mall? The man shrugged. He had not paid close enough attention. He was sorry. Noah said thank you and walked in the direction the man pointed. 2.5 hours straight. He knocked on every vet clinic he could find. Described Buddy at each one. Checked an animal shelter on the far side of the district. Walked the entire outside of the mall in the rain, looking, calling. Nothing. No phone. No adult. No last name. No way to search the way a person with resources could have searched in 20 minutes. He had only his feet, his voice, and something inside him that had stopped feeling like emotion and started feeling like gravity, heavy and constant, pulling him forward because stopping was something his body would not allow. On the 5th day, he sat on a curb in the rain and made a sign. Cardboard from a recycling bin. Marker from his backpack. Lost dog. Hurt front leg. His name is Buddy. I am on Westover Road. Please. No phone number. Nothing to put there. He stared at that last word for a long moment. Please. One word with nothing behind it, but need. He stood and taped the sign to the nearest pole. He made 8 more over the next 2 days. Every pole between Westover Road and the East Side Mall. Everyone the same. Everyone ending the same way. Please. The rain came. The ink ran. The cardboard softened and peeled away one by one until they were all gone. The corner stayed empty. Nobody came. He went back to the wall. He sat down in the same spot. Cold stone at his back. Iron gate to his left. The mansion glowing warm and gold on the other side of it. Full of people who had no idea he existed. And the empty space beside him where Buddy used to be. Every evening he sat and looked at the corner. He talked to the empty space. He said, come on. I am right here. I have not moved. He said, I am not angry at you. You did not do anything wrong. He said, on the 7th night, with rain coming straight down and the cold so deep in his bones that 5 minutes of Buddy's warmth would have fixed it, I just need you to come back. That is all I am asking. Just come back. The corner stayed empty. He stopped eating properly. Not because there was no food, but eating had been so connected to Buddy for so long. The soft sound of something being set down, the tail moving, the warmth pressing in. That eating without him felt wrong in a way he could not think his way past. The days got harder. The nights got longer. He got quieter. People on the street noticed. The woman who sometimes left coffee out for him asked if he was okay. He said yes. A man who ran a sandwich shop on Morrison Street and had started leaving day-old bread in a bag by the side door, bread that Buddy used to pick up and carry back to Noah, stood in his doorway one afternoon and watched Noah walk past and said nothing. Just watched. Noah was walking differently by the 6th day. Slower. Less sure of where he was going. He still checked the corner every evening when he sat down. He still talked to the empty space. But the words were getting shorter. By the 8th day, he stopped searching the streets. His body had run out of forward. He sat against the wall, and he looked at the corner, and the corner looked back at him, and neither of them had anything new to offer the other. On the 9th night, he did not talk at all. He just sat. The rain fell. The mansion glowed. Cars moved through the gate. The street held its silence around him like something that had always been there and always would be. And then the 10th night came. Nothing made it different from the others. Same rain. Same glowing mansion. Same empty street. But something that had been holding inside Noah for a very long time was no longer holding. He pulled his knees to his chest. He pressed his face down against them. And he cried. Not the quiet kind. The other kind. The kind that comes from somewhere underneath everything. Underneath the walls and the control and the careful stillness he had built to stay standing. The place inside him that did not know how to be strong. That just felt things. All the way. With nothing in between. He cried for Buddy. For the warmth against his side every single night. For food carried through the rain by a dog who owed him nothing and gave him everything. For the breathing he used to count. For the ears that came forward every time he said the name. For the tail that moved, broken, exhausted, barely off the ground. Because getting back to Noah was simply not something Buddy was going to fail to do. He cried for his mother. For the number worn off his wrist. For the oak tree tapping the window at night. For the humming in the kitchen. For the granola bars that were always too sweet and always there anyway. For every warm thing that was gone. He cried until he had nothing left. Until the inside of him was still and empty. Not peaceful. Just the silence that comes after a storm burns through everything it had. He sat in that silence. The rain fell. The mansion glowed. The street held its quiet. Then slowly Noah reached out and pressed his hand flat against the pavement beside him. Against the space that had been warm every night for months. Against the cold, wet stone. He said, barely a breath, to the dark, to the rain, to wherever Buddy was. Thank you. The same 2 words he had said on the 3rd night. When a dog walked up to a hungry boy on a wet street, set a sandwich down, and stepped back and waited. He closed his eyes. And in the cold, and the dark, and the rain, with his hand resting on the empty space where his dog used to be, Noah cried himself to sleep. If you enjoyed this story, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one.